Hi, welcome. I want to approach another topic here, and I'm calling this transparency in the classroom. Now, what I'm not talking about is me as the instructor suddenly disappearing and then reappearing. What I'm talking about is transparency of the learning process in the classroom, helping our students understand why we're doing certain things we're doing. Because they're very comfortable, probably very comfortable with listening to you lecture, taking notes, those kinds of things. But when we start doing all these other things that we've talked about in this training, as well as the first training, active learning, working in groups, etc., some of them are going to be asking, well, why are we doing this? Why are we investing this time? Just give me the answers. Don't bother me with all this stuff. Just give me the answers. Give me the content. Why are we doing all this stuff? So it's important to be able to explain to them, and don't be shy about explaining to them why you're doing what you're doing. So, for example, whatever way you want to do this, to express to them that learning is a cyclic process, that you have to go through multiple iterations of the cycle to actually have learned. And when we don't go through multiple cycles, when we don't complete the cycle, then learning really has not happened. Yes, student, you might be able to memorize enough to pass the exam, but have you actually learned that? Probably not. So learning is a cyclic process. That's one concept to share with them. Bloom's taxonomy. Don't be shy about explaining or presenting to them something about Bloom's taxonomy. So the idea is you don't have to go into huge detail. They don't even necessarily have to remember all the different levels, but understand that there are different levels of thinking, from lower level thinking skills to higher level thinking skills. Talk about how those things relate to critical thinking. Again, that's one of those skills gap or professional competencies that employers are looking for, and have the students recognize that, okay, you as a student know how to do this, you know how to memorize things, to remember things, understand things, but do you know how to evaluate using that knowledge? Do you know how to analyze using that knowledge? And that's why we are doing things that we're doing in the classroom to provide you the opportunity to practice these skills, these critical thinking skills at these other levels of Bloom's taxonomy. I very often have a short lesson in my module that relates to this. I oftentimes relate it this way in more of a stair-step manner. Again, build these, what are you analyzing? Well, you're using information here. What are you evaluating? You're using information here. So these things relate to each other, sharing that with the students. And then explicitly saying, well, you know, the lectures and the quizzes and those kinds of things, the readings are down. That's what this is. But all those other things that we're doing case studies, we're doing concept maps, we're doing team projects, think, pair, share activities, group oral presentations, in-class discussions, collaborative learning, group work, all those other things, you as a student are working at these levels, practicing those skills. The content you're using is this stuff down here, yes, but you're using it in a different way, and these are having you practice your critical thinking skills. So don't be shy about sharing these ideas with them. Don't make them part of an exam. Don't give them an exam question on what Bloom's taxonomy is, but help them understand why it is we're working at these other levels and doing these kinds of things. Rubrics is a really straightforward way of sharing what are your expectations. What do you expect from them on a project, a term paper, presentation, whatever the case may be. Again, remember, it's a document provided to the students that explicitly explains the overall expectations of the assignment, the criteria the students must meet, arranged as levels from poor to excellent, low to high, and then the points or grades that are aligned with the students meeting each respective criteria. And again, you've had videos related to designing rubrics. If you're having students work on some project or something and they're using the inquiry process, explicitly share with them what is the process. Again, it's a cyclic process. Many times we start with question, ask. They do an investigation, they create something. Remember, if they only go this far, that's not really completing the cycle. They need to somehow discuss it with others or get feedback. They need to reflect on that. They need to come up with additional questions. Have them understand that this in real life is how we do things in terms of the inquiry process. We don't just do a bunch of readings, write a paper, and boom, that's it, and walk away from it. So help them understand the process, the inquiry process, if that's what you're doing in your module. And again, a lot of times you can tell our bias is to getting students to working collaboratively. So share with them, why is it important for you to know how to work collaboratively with your colleagues? So it enhances your problem-solving skills, it inspires critical thinking, it improves social interactions and supports diversity, aids development of self-management skills, communication skills, and fosters development of interpersonal relationships, all those kinds of things. And if you go back and those skills gaps, you can just check those off one at a time. That's exactly what's going on. Also, do not be shy about sharing perspectives from potential employers. So here's something from a survey of high-tech companies, and tell them, literally, say, look, from these companies, when they were surveyed, they said that the leading cause for dismissal of new employees after 36-month trial period was the inability to function effectively on teams and the lack of interpersonal skills. That's why you, student, that's why it's so important that we're doing these things in the classroom and thinking about the learning process and integrating these kinds of things, the group and teams and those kinds of things. Don't be shy about sharing this with them, this Tuckman and Jensen's group development model, because they're going to get into these groups, these teams, and they're going to flounder a little bit. We'll help them understand, yeah, you are going to go through these stages. You're going to go forming, storming, norming, performing, adjourning, and so on. And explicitly explain to them, yes, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. You're going to start here. You're going to argue. You're going to negotiate. Finally, you're going to norm, and so on. Also then explain to them, well, these are things I, as the instructor, can do to help you get through this, to get from here to here more quickly. Things like group mixers. Have them do a concept map right at the beginning, a crossword puzzle right at the beginning, something like that to get them to start talking to each other and getting to know each other. Chilan talked about group contracts or team contracts. Very, very important to help them get through these stages quickly. Project prospectus. We really haven't talked about that in the 2.0. We talked about it in the pedagogical training 1.0. This is basically a plan. So they get through this, they have their team contract. Now they're looking at the task that you've given them, the project that they're going to be working on. At the very beginning, it's a plan. What is our plan? Right now, today, day one, how do we envision doing this? What resources do we want? How are we going to go about doing it? What are the basic topics that we're going to explore in doing this project and things like that? Again, give them a few points for this and that's about it. But these kinds of things help them work through. And what you're doing by sharing this group development model with them is saying, okay, I as the instructor are helping you go from here to here more quickly, and this is some of the ways that I'm doing that. Skills gap. Don't be shy about sharing the skills gap information from your stakeholders. Hey students, you know, when you graduate, your employers are going to be looking for these kinds of skills. And how am I helping you in this module to develop these skills? Oh, I'm having you work in groups and teams and check off every one of them. Again, don't be shy about sharing this kind of information with them so they understand why you're doing things. So when they ask, well, Dr. Hurley, why are we doing all this stuff? Then you can finally say, well, now here's how it relates to learning. Here's how it relates to your skill development. Here's how it relates to the learning process. Be explicit in doing that. That's what I mean by transparency of learning. So this gets us right back to this idea of student-centered learning, and that as the instructor, I am a facilitator, a partner in this learning process. Part of my job is to help them understand about the learning process, about why we are doing what we're doing in this student-centered learning environment. Again, it requires a shift in our mindset, and part of that shift in the mindset is not simply, it goes beyond simply, I'm giving you information, you go learn it, to hey, we're doing something with that information, and here's why we're doing that. So transparency, I'm talking about transparency of the learning process in the classroom. Hopefully that will help you think about how to share these things with your students. Good luck.